and welcome to or back to the channel. I'm Jay for those of you who are new here. So going into August, I had really high hopes. I'd been averaging about 12 books or more a month, and I really wanted to keep that momentum going. If you watched my August TBR video, then you know that my plan was to finally tackle some of those underhyped physical books that have been staring at me from my shelves. But then my library holds all started rolling in at once, and they were like these little flashy distractions I couldn't ignore. And listen, I am a mood reader through and through, so if anyone's to blame for my TBR falling apart, it's me, not the books. Still, my reading month went off a cliff, and I'll tell you exactly why and how in this wrap up. This month kicked off with what I was sure was going to be a slam dunk. It's a love story by Annabelle Monaghan. Forced proximity, hometown vibes, a second chance romance. Basically my recipe for an easy win. This is my fourth book by this author. One I adored, one I really enjoyed, and one I liked okay. But I blame that on it being an older release. So naturally I went into this new release expecting her latest to be back in that really enjoy territory. Except no, this one ended up being at the bottom of her stack for me. I just couldn't connect with Jane, our main character, and while Dan, the love interest, was fine, I felt more invested in the idea of them getting together than the actual chemistry on the page. His family eventually grew on me once I stopped being completely lost by how many of them there were, and I liked the setup more than the payoff. The part I was most excited for, which was for her to finally get the upper hand over the people who humiliated her as a child actor, just never happened. She ends up making herself look worse. And as somebody who gets secondhand embarrassment, even when it's a fictional character, I just really didn't enjoy that. This one's highly rated, so maybe I'm missing something, but for me it was just okay. I gave it 2.75 stars. After that lukewarm start to the month, I needed something to sink my teeth into, so I picked up Culpability by Bruce Holsinger. Right away, I was hooked. An autonomous minivan accident, a family full of secrets, and the matriarch is a world leader in AI. The mystery around the crash unfolds alongside these fraught family dynamics, and it gave me that same insecure, ominous feeling as Leave the World Behind. You know, when you can't shake the sense that something terrible is coming. But in this case, I cared deeply about these characters. I was fully there for the rich people drama, the familial lies, and the slow burn reveals, the anything that can go wrong will atmosphere, all set against this gorgeous Chesapeake Bay vacation. And underneath it all, there's this terrifying undercurrent about how integrated AI already is in our lives and how easy it is to miss because we're looking at something else. This one was addictive and unsettling and an easy 5-star rating from me. From there, I veered into Beautyland by Marie-Helene Bertino, which was a total tone shift. I'll be honest, early on, I was thinking, is this boring? What's the point? But it's one of those books that's more about the feeling it leaves you with than the plot or even the characters. It follows Adina, who believes she's been sent from another planet to observe Earth, sending transmissions to her extraterrestrial relatives. Did I say that right? I never felt super connected to most of the cast, except her dog. I was all in for the dog. But as it went on, the story built toward this bittersweet reflection of being human. It reminded me of that moment in the movie Don't Look Up, and Leonardo DiCaprio's character says, "We really did have it all, didn't we?" That's the kind of quiet ache it left me with. I don't even know what you'd call that type of read. Literary something, when you like it for the feeling that it gave you more than the actual story. But that was exactly my experience with this one. I gave it 3.5 stars. Next, I went full historical grit with Gap Creek by Robert Morgan. And wow, this book starts with a bang and just keeps piling on. Julie, at 17, marries and moves into the valley of Gap Creek at the end of the 19th century. And it is just one hardship after another. Fires, flood, grifters, endless work. She handles it all with such dignity and perseverance that I could not stop reading, even when I wanted to look away. There's a point late in the book where a chapter starts with something like, "It's a good thing X happened because things got worse." And I literally lowered the book, looked up at the ceiling, and said, "It gets worse? How?" I admire Julie so much, and I loved the window into that time period, even if a few of the love scenes were oddly artistic in a way that pulled me completely out of the story. Also, I'll admit, it felt strange that the author, a man, was writing first person from a woman's perspective. Though he explains in the afterword that this story was based on his grandmother's life, and so I guess that makes sense. I gave this one 4 stars. Then I moved on to Broken Country by Claire Leslie Hall, which was an absolute knockout. I picked it up and basically didn't come up for air for 24 hours. It's set mostly in rural England in the 1950s and 60s, and it follows Beth, whose life is upended when an old flame returns after some tragic circumstances in her own life. The dual timelines are woven seamlessly. The characters are flawed in some fascinating ways, and it is deeply emotional. Maybe look for triggers. I don't know. I have always been hesitant to recommend trigger warnings or give them because they feel spoilery, but this one does deal with a very, very deeply sad topic. My only gripes were really small. I had to keep reminding myself we were in England and in that time period because the setting cues to me felt a little sparse. And especially coming off Gap Creek, I swear I just kept going back to the 1800s. And there is one plot point that I took issue with, but can't really talk about it without spoiling. Even with that said, this was nearly perfect. I gave it 4.5 stars. After Broken Country, I thought I'd try something a little different, and I picked up Moderation by Elaine Castillo. This is one I was really looking forward to because it was being compared to Severance by Ling Ma, which is one of those books that had me glued to the page at the time when I read it. But this, I wanted to look away. And not in the good, this world is so uncomfortable, but I can't stop reading kind of way. I mean, I did want to look away. The graphic detail of what our main character is moderating, the bizarre romance, and honestly just the overall vibe was just not for me. And that's a bummer because I love fiction about the future of humanity and technology. This one should have been right up my alley, but instead I found it boring and disappointing. I gave it 2 stars. Hoping to shake that one off, I went into The View from Lake Como by Adriana Trigiani. The setup had me hooked at first. So much so that because of the timing, I went ahead and added it to my book of the month box. So yeah, now I have this book physically. Yeah, so let's get back into it. The setup had me hooked at first. Funny, heartfelt family dynamics, a main character who felt very relatable in her messy relationships, and the promise of Italy on the horizon. Early on, I kept wondering, why is she leaving her husband? They've known each other forever. The families are all tangled together, and it doesn't seem like anything happened to trigger upending your life. So I was intrigued. But soon after, it veered into Netflix movie territory. Not that that can't be enjoyable, but it just didn't cut it for me with this book. Once it stopped feeling real and authentic, I just got bored. And with all the dialogue, this is extremely dialogue heavy, it dragged for me. Despite the high ratings, so clearly I'm alone on an island here, I didn't enjoy it. And honestly, I kind of blame it for putting me into a reading slump for the second half of August. Only because of the strong start, 2.5 stars. But that false hope almost made it more of a letdown. To pull myself out of that slump, I reached for what I knew could save me, a KU romance. I picked up Madam by Sarah Kate, which is, I don't know, book 100 in the Salacious Players Club series. I do believe it's the last one, but don't hold me to that. But boy, did this one surprise me. I've had mixed feelings across this whole series. So I did go into it with low expectations, but this ended up being a standout. Eden, who I never felt connected to in the previous books, finally got the spotlight, and I did enjoy learning about her backstory. There's one pretty big secret that she's been keeping that I felt was a little far-fetched, but beyond that, I devoured the found family dynamics in this one. It measured up to my earlier favorite in the series, which was Eyes on Me. That said, nothing in this series has broken through 3.5 stars for me, including this one. So I'm not sure if I'll continue on with the spin-off series about the next generation. But for what it was, this was exactly the fun, immersive read I needed to get me out of my slump and get me back into the groove. So that was my August. It started out so strong, hit that magical 5-star high, and then my mood and one particular book derailed the rest of my month. If you've read any of these, I'd love to hear what you thought. And tell me in the comments if you've ever had a book completely derail your reading, whether it was so good you couldn't move on, or so bad it made you want to avoid picking up anything else. And if you enjoyed hanging out with me today, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss more bookish content. Thanks so much for spending your time here with me today, and I'll see you again soon in the next video. Bye!